Well, hello there. This is Craig Hain, and this is going to be a video aimed specifically at middle school and high school mathematics teachers. Now, I'm the founder of a company called Triad Math Inc., and you can go to our website and learn all about us, and we are involved in teaching mathematics the 21st century way. And our mission, if you go to our website and study it, is to actually deliver an effective and an appropriate post-elementary math education to every person who wants one, quickly and easily and inexpensively. And as a high school teacher, we want to help you do the same thing. Okay, now you're a math teacher, and so you know the following. Here are the three things that we have to teach our students. First of all, we have to teach them concepts. And we need to teach them concepts that are appropriate in terms of what they're going to be able to use in their life and concepts that they're ready to understand and that fit into their proper sequence of training. And we're going to have to also include in this what I call heuristic proofs. These are going to be solid arguments, but not necessarily formal proofs, things that will add meaning and understanding to the concepts. The second thing that we have to teach our students are tools to solve the problems. Now, there are manual tools and there are modern tools, and I'm going to talk a lot more about that in this video for you. And then finally, we have to decide how much theory we want to include. This involves how much rigor we want to have, what kind of proofs we want to give them, and also what kind of concepts that we want to give them that are appropriate for them at that time. And so these are the three things that as math teachers we always have to keep in mind and ask ourselves, how are we teaching these to our students and in what order and so on. And that's what this video is going to be all about. Okay, now I told you that I'm Craig Hain, and I've been teaching mathematics for many, many decades to students at many, many levels. And I have a website, craighain.com, and you can go there, and there's lots and lots of information about all the different things that I can try to help you with. And it depends on who you're teaching, the level you're teaching, and all sorts of things, and your background as to how much I'll be able to help you. But if you go to this website, you'll get a tremendous amount of information there. And down over here in the lower corner, you'll get my VTOS, so you can find exactly who I am, and so on. So this is how I can begin to help you by just offering you a lot of information that you might find of some value. Now, the truth of the matter is, if you're teaching mathematics in a typical high school today, and you have to teach what I call the standard math curriculum, I'm going to be fairly limited in what I can help you do. For example, you're having to teach concepts that, in my opinion, are quite inappropriate for beginning students. You're going to have to be including some theory and some advanced concepts, theoretical concepts, and some proofs that are probably quite premature. But worse than that, you're going to have to be teaching them a lot of the manual tools. That's what's still in our books today. That's in our algebra books, and our geometry books, and our trig books. And these are manual tools and algorithms that were developed back by our ancestors in the 1700s and 1800s. And they were wonderful back in those days. They didn't have computers then. They didn't have modern technology. But today there are modern tools that will do all of these problems for you automatically, error-free, quickly, and you can learn the concepts much, much better with these modern tools. And that is something then that I think I can offer you that is going to be a really big deal to help you and your students. Now, of course, this fantastic modern tool that literally revolutionizes how we can learn and teach and practice mathematics is called the Supercomputer. This is my personal supercomputer, hooked into the TV behind you, hooked into a power supply, hooked into my keyboard. And there are other videos on this webpage that explain it in detail, and you need to watch those because I believe that it will help you be a much better teacher and help your students in many ways. And as a matter of fact, I believe that some of your students will eventually get one themselves, and so you'll need that, if nothing else, to keep up with them. And I think this is going to really help you, even though you're teaching the standard math curriculum. Okay, now let's suppose that you are a teacher that has some freedom to really teach the very best math you can to your students and give them exactly what they need that's most appropriate for them. And that is a freedom that some of you might have if you're teaching in a private school or maybe in a public school that has lots of problems and they give you a lot of freedom in what you do. Well, go back to the Craig Hain website and go down to the bottom where it says Tiers 1 through 6 Math Syllabi and click on that. Now, this is what I teach students today, and this is distilled from decades and decades of teaching. This is what I know students can really respond to and learn. The very first thing I teach the student is how to use a scientific calculator. We use the TI 30XA, which is about a $10 calculator, and we put them through a whole series of lessons. Now, each one of these lessons is a video. That would be like a little lecture you'd give them, and then a lot of exercises, and then some quizzes. And you don't let them move on until they've mastered each one. They've got to do this in sequence. It's like climbing a ladder. Now, this is very kinesthetic. You're often going to have students that are afraid of math. They've had a bad experience. They don't like it, and you want to get them involved. It's not a game, but it has the quality of a game. They're doing exercises, and you encourage, when they make mistakes, you cheer them on. That's how you learn. And they start learning to do these things. And it's just amazing what this calculator, of course, can do. Now, compare this to the old manual algorithms that are so often taught today in elementary school and even in high school. Nobody does that anymore. No one's going to pay you to use those old manual techniques. They're wonderful techniques when you didn't have calculators, but you've got calculators now. I happen to be teaching in an engineering school back when the first scientific calculator came out. And then we were using slide rules and log tables, and they were obsoleted overnight because this is the way to do arithmetic. I then go ahead and I give them what I call pre-algebra, and this is just a review, really, of the rules of arithmetic. I want to make sure they really understand that. This for Tier 1, and it usually takes most students just maybe a couple, 3 weeks to go through it, and it gets them started. They go, oh, this is easy. I can do this. I can do this. Now, Triad Math stands for, the triad is psychology, content, and pedagogy. The psychology of your students is the number one thing. So get them going down the right path. Now, once you've done that, then you're ready to start teaching them some algebra. Now, the first time I teach students algebra, there's only 8 lessons. Compare that to the algebra books today. These horrible, bloated algebra books. Just all kinds of stuff. This, by the way, is just really all the algebra you need if you're just going to go into a non-professional technical career. In fact, I'll show you a little bit about that in a moment. And then we teach them a little geometry. Now, again, we're not proving theorems. This is not theory. This is how long is something? What's an angle got to be? What's an area? What's a volume? There's 19 lessons. And the students love it because it's something they're going to be able to use in just about any practical thing they ever want to do in life. There are just many things. And, of course, I tell them now, you need to be able to solve triangle problems. Angles are very important. And for this, you need basic trigonometry. And so we give them that. Now, this Tier 2, which is the algebra, geometry, and trigonometry, most students go through that very, very easily in a semester. Remember, each one of these is a video lesson with exercises. Now, if you're a teacher, you're the one going to give the lectures. You can do this. I'm telling you what I teach. You can do it yourself if you want to. I'll show you in a minute, if you want to get copies of my notes, how there's a way you can do that fairly economically. We don't sell the notes because they're not considered self-study. Some teacher has to explain all this, and I do that in video. If you're buying my program, I'm the teacher. But if you're the teacher, then you're going to do this, and this is what you can do. And this is really quite a wonderful thing. Now, let me tell you what happens if a student is not going to go on to college. Then there's some additional things you want to teach them, and we have a website called Practical Math for the Workforce. And what you want to do is you want to go look at the syllabus here on this. And that will actually then show you some extra topics you'll want to teach them when you finish Tier 2 if they're not going to go on to college. Now, the facts of the matter are, you're going to have a lot of students that once they get through this, they're going to like math. They're going to say, this is pretty good. And they may be thinking of going on and doing something more advanced. So the next thing I want to do is get them ready for the SAT exam. And we do this in Tier 3. Now, the truth of the matter is, we're going to teach them a whole lot of things that they'll never use in their life if they don't actually go into STEM. But they're going to need it for the SAT. Now, at this point in time, let me show you something. I now use a textbook for the first and only time in my program, and I use this fantastic textbook by Dr. George Simmons, Pre-Calculus Mathematics in a Nutshell. It costs about $15. He was, in my view, the most brilliant teacher of the 20th century. And as a matter of fact, I will bet you a little money you'll learn a lot in this that you didn't know already. I know I did. I'm a PhD in mathematics, and when I went through this book the first time, I learned some things I didn't know. Of course, every day there's always new things to learn, but this is a book that I highly recommend that you use. And I use that then extensively in Tier 3. But I also have some custom notes. And these are the topics that he does not cover that I believe are necessary in Tier 3, getting ready for the SAT and the ACT. And then, of course, I actually have a whole Part 3 on how do you prepare for the SAT. The SAT, in my view, is a horrible test. But it's something we have to live with. It's something that our students have to take if they're going to go to college. I don't think it proves much of anything, quite frankly. It really proves whether they've had a lot of training on the SAT and getting ready for it. You can score a perfect score on the SAT and be nowhere near ready, prepared to go off to a really good school and study some STEM subject. And now I'm going to tell you in just a minute how we deal with that. Now, it takes most students about a year to go up through Tier 3, starting from the beginning. Like I said, it only takes them perhaps just a few weeks to go through Tier 1 and Tier 2. Maybe a semester, and then to go through that. And then Tier 3 is another semester, maybe a year for some kids. It doesn't matter. It depends on how fast. It's all self-paced, and you have to go at a student's own pace. Now the question is, what do they do now? Now let's say that a student says, hey, I think I might be interested in some STEM subject, science or engineering or technology, or maybe even math itself, but more than likely a science subject. Well, then I go into Tier 4. Now, in Tier 4, I go back and I do geometry at a much deeper level, and I go back to Dr. Simmons' book. In fact, I haven't had to do any geometry out of Simmons' book in Tier 3. We'd already done enough in Tier 2. But now we go through Simmons' book for geometry, and it is an absolutely wonderful book on that, and it's just super. Now, then I go into his algebra section in his book, and it's really these are the topics that are in it. But what I do that George Simmons hasn't done, because he didn't have it, this book came out in 1988, in about the 5th lesson here in algebra, I introduce Wolfram Alpha. Now, you can use Wolfram Alpha free on a regular computer. It's a free thing. It's a free tool, been available since 2009. I highly recommend you use a supercomputer because you can store the Wolfram Alpha problems in a notebook. And in fact, if you use a large TV like this, you can have a split screen. You can put a video over on the right. You can put the notes on the left and the notebook on the left and go at it. Now I begin to use Wolfram Alpha. Now I will tell you something. You've taught conic sections before, I have no doubt. And I've taught it many, many times. When I use Wolfram Alpha, I understood it much better than I had ever understood it before in my life. Now, of course, as you know, the thing in math, in STEM math, is functions. Functions are everything. All math models are basically built out of functions. And so once again, I use Simmons' book, but I also, as I'm doing it, I'm integrating it with Wolfram Alpha, because the facts are Wolfram Alpha will let you just absolutely do anything that you can think of with any kind of function. And so these are and then we do trigonometry at a much deeper level now, of course. Now we're not solving triangles. We're using by the way, trigonometry is a very profound and deep subject, and it permeates all of STEM. And so you have to understand it at a very, very deep conceptual level, and the tool of Wolfram Alpha makes it so much easier. Now, something I do then that's not in Dr. Simmons' book, and in fact it's almost never taught properly in any high school course, and I highly recommend you learn this, and then I teach the complex number system. Now, this is critically important. As you know, in STEM, you're going to have to use complex numbers all the time. You go to Wikipedia and look it up, and you'll see that it's used everywhere. Euler's identity is the key to understanding them, and here is the 7 lessons, and once a student goes through this, they really, really understand complex numbers. And that's critical for engineering. Any kind of engineering or science, you need to know that. I also then give them, in Tier 4 now, we're still into what I would call pre-calculus, I'm giving them some special topics. And these are things, a lot of these are out of Dr. Simmons' book, and I also have some special topics that are really aimed at just future math majors or teachers. This is not something I would teach most STEM students because it goes beyond what they're going to need to know in science and engineering. But if they're going to be math majors or if you're teachers, then you're going to find this interesting. And this is all in Dr. Simmons' book. Now, Tier 4 takes most students, if they're reasonably talented, they don't have to be genius or anything, just reasonably good, about a year to go through, and if they work at it steadily. So we're looking now, we're 2 years, maybe 3 into the program. Then in Tier 5, I do calculus. Now this is where things really, really get different. Calculus, as you know, if you've taught calculus before, differential calculus is where you learn to analyze functions. That's how you learn to find maximum and minimum and points of inflection and graph them. And it's not terribly difficult, particularly if you rig up the problems, but it's not easy either. And with Wolfram Alpha, it becomes much, much easier. Now, theoretically, I will just tell you, I use infinitesimals to use the proofs, and that's a whole other story I won't go into in this video, but infinitesimals are a fantastic tool that you need to use. Now, what happens after differential calculus, then we go into integral calculus. Now, this is a subject that has flunked more kids out of engineering school than anything else I know. Techniques of integration, the manual techniques, are extremely difficult to master. Most people have a very bad memory of Calculus 2 their first time through it. It's finding antiderivatives so you can apply the fundamental theorem is the hard part. Very, very difficult. I have a lot of free videos that talk all about this. Well, guess what? Wolfram Alpha with the supercomputer makes this extremely easy. So now if you're interested in science and engineering, calculus is no longer an impediment. The tool of Wolfram Alpha is what you're going to use. Now, where do these functions come from? Well, the functions you're going to study in STEM come from differential equations, and that's an even harder subject than integral calculus. Guess what? As you can imagine, Wolfram Alpha does all this for you automatically. So you're going to be able to go through calculus now using the tool Wolfram Alpha. You're prepared for it now. You've had Tier 4. You really understand the concepts of pre-calculus. You understand exponential functions, complex numbers, and trigonometry functions and so on. Now you're going to apply calculus. 1 semester, you'll learn everything you need to know about it because of the tool. You're not using the manual tools. Differential equations, same thing, 1 semester. Very easy. So I have students now starting at age 12 that get all the way through differential equations by the time they're 15 or 16 years old. Can you believe that? That's unheard of. And it's not because I'm a great teacher. I am a pretty good teacher, but you're no better than you. What it is, it's the tool. It's the Wolfram Alpha tool. Now, the problem, of course, you have is every one of these has a video with it and often exercises. And so the question is then, how are you going to handle that? Well, I'm going to show you now, before we leave this video, how you can handle that. Okay, we have a lot of clients that are homeschool teachers, and of course they are not math teachers. So they want to hire me to do their teaching, which I do via these videos. And they're coaches, though. They help their students, and I teach them how to coach their students. That's very important. But then what we do is we sell them this training that I've been talking about, the syllabus I just went over. Now, we used to just sell these as units, 197, 297, and so on. But now we have a family plan. 1 child, $25 a month. And that gets you access to everything. Now, of course, it takes, as I said, most children, if they go all the way through the whole thing, it's going to take them 3 or 4 years. But you're a math teacher. You should be able to go through the whole thing very quickly. You're going to blast through the first 3 or 4 tiers because you know that already. You've taught all that. You're going to learn some new things, of course, but you won't need to spend much time on it. And while you're doing it, every one of those lessons has a PDF set of notes, and you can print them out, and now you've got the notes to follow, and then you can teach. Now, you can't reproduce those notes. That would be illegal. But what you can do, if a student you want to get those notes for a student, you just enroll that student for 1 month. You print out all the notes, and then you unenroll them, and then, of course, you've got the notes. I'm giving you kind of a hack of how you can get all these notes for like $25. Now, you've got to print them out, and you've got to go through. You're the teacher to do that. If money's not, maybe you don't want to do it in 1 month. You could take 2 or 3 months. However long it takes you, it doesn't matter. You enroll, and then you can be in the program as long as you want to. There's no time limit on it, one way or the other. But this is what I highly recommend to you. Now, I've told you now, I've shared with you what I believe is the ideal mathematics curriculum. And as a matter of fact, you can get a free copy of a book I wrote on the subject back in 2011. I call it Teaching Math, a high school math curriculum that works for all students. And pretty much I described at that time what I plan to do with the 6-tier system. I'd only done the first 2 tiers then, and now it's all completed. And you can read all about it. And it tells you why the current standard math curriculum is failing, but it also tells you then what you can do about it, which is what I've sort of just described to you. Now, you are a math teacher. You want to do the best job you can for your students, and they deserve it, and you deserve it too. So I think I've given you now, hopefully, the information that will help you do that, and I've told you the tools to do it. Like I said, if you're stuck with the standard math curriculum, you're still going to find the supercomputer a great benefit to you, both personally to use, and it may be for some of your students. In fact, we're going to aggressively try to sell these things to students that can afford them, because it's going to help the students when they're studying math. Whether it's in high school or college, it's going to help them, because, as you know, the supercomputer not only will solve the problem, but it will show them manually how to do it if they have to learn that. Now, I don't teach that in my courses because I don't expect students to learn the manual techniques. I think that's a waste of their time. But the standard math curriculum does it, and you may be doing that. So the supercomputer will help them with that too. That's why we call it a tutor. Not only will it solve any math problem, but it will be your tutor. Now, as I said, in my program, I don't emphasize that because I don't think it's worthwhile to learn these obsolete 17th, 18th century techniques to solve it, because you're never going to use them. You're going to use a tool. There's other tools out there, by the way. This isn't the only tool, but it's the most effective tool I found today, and it's very, very cost effective. So I highly recommend it to you, and I hope this helps you as a teacher. I want you to do as good a job as you can. Now, you've got my contact information. You'll have it if you download my free book. There's my contact information. The Teaching Math book, you can download a free PDF copy of it. And then my contact, call me if you want to, or email me. By the way, when you buy the supercomputer, you get in the Supercomputer Club. And the club now has all sorts of things in it that you get when you buy the supercomputer. For example, these are the training videos that you need to use a supercomputer. These are all the training videos that you get that show you how to use it. Because if you don't know how to use Wolfram Alpha, then it isn't going to do you much good. It took me a long time to learn how to use Wolfram Alpha to do all these things. I recently talked to a person that works for Wolfram Research, and he said very few people know how to do this, even though Wolfram Alpha does it. So I highly recommend that you buy the supercomputer, you'll be a member of the club. There's also a forum, and you can go to the forum and ask questions. So this is Craig Hain. I hope this video has helped you as a teacher. And by the way, one last word, if you are a homeschool teacher, or if you're a teacher that you feel like you're kind of weak at math, then what you may want to do is enroll your students in my program and let me be the teacher, and you be more the coach. And maybe the first time through, it'll help you learn, and then the next time through, maybe you could be more of the teacher. That's really up to you. That's a decision you have to make. In any event, my mission for you, for all students, is to learn the best math that they can for what they need, and my role for you is to help you be the best teacher you can be. I hope this has helped, and I hope I can help you. I wish you the very best for your future success for both you and your students.